The cabin fell silent when the white pilot stormed down the aisle, eyes locked on a black woman seated in VIP. Without hesitation, he barked in order. Move. No reason, no courtesy, just authority dripping with arrogance. Passengers froze, phones raised as she calmly held her ground. But what the pilot didn't know was that the woman he tried to humiliate held the power to unravel his entire airline. What happened next would shake his career and his company to its core. The air in the cabin was heavy, the kind of silence that carries judgment in every glance. The black woman sat tall in her assigned VIP seat, boarding pass still warm in her hand. But the pilot wasn't looking at the paper. He was looking at her. His steps echoed down the aisle with a deliberate weight, his face carved into an expression of authority. "You need to move," he said, his tone sharp enough to cut glass. Passengers looked up from their phones, sensing the confrontation. Her jaw stayed steady. She had heard that tone before, in boardrooms and corporate dinners, the same entitled assumption that she didn't belong. The pilot didn't ask to see her ticket. He didn't question whether there was a mistake. He simply told her to move. "This is my assigned seat," she replied evenly, tapping the paper against the armrest. His eyes narrowed. "Not anymore." The words dripped with arrogance, as if the seat was his to reassign at will. Behind him, a man in a rumpled but expensive suit hovered impatiently, clearly waiting to claim her place. The attendant shifted nervously, glancing between the captain and the woman, as though bracing for impact. Passengers began recording, phones raised discreetly. The tension thickened like smoke. "Is there a safety issue with my seat?" she asked, her tone calm but firm. "It's reserved," the pilot barked. "For who?" she pressed. "That's not your concern," he shot back. The truth hung in the air without being spoken. It was for the white man standing behind him. A guest, not a paying customer, not someone with proof of purchase. Just a guest of the captain, and in their eyes, that was enough to strip her of what she had rightfully earned. Her silence was not surrender, it was strategy. She met his gaze unflinching until the muscles in his jaw twitched with irritation. Every second she refused to move was a public indictment of his bias. "We're not going anywhere until you relocate," he snapped, stepping closer until the scent of jet fuel clung to the tension between them. Whispers spread across the rows. A woman across the aisle whispered, "This isn't right." Another muttered, "She has a ticket." But the captain pressed on, confident in his authority, determined to humiliate her into submission. Finally, a supervisor arrived, trying to mask the hostility with a rehearsed smile. "Let's take this conversation to the front," she offered. The black woman shook her head. "No, we can have it right here." Passengers leaned in. The supervisor's facade cracked. "You've been reassigned to row 21 in economy," she said, her voice tight. Gasps rippled through the cabin. Phones tilted higher. One man muttered, "That's messed up." Still, the woman didn't flinch. "If you delay, that's on you," she replied, calm as stone. "I paid for this seat, and I intend to use it." That was the final straw. "Enough," the pilot thundered. "You're being disruptive." That word, disruptive, was the weapon always used when someone dared to challenge injustice. It was the same word hurled at her in meetings when she spoke too boldly, the same accusation whispered when she refused to shrink. She rose slowly, not in defeat, but in defiance. Phones followed her every step as she was escorted down the aisle to the cramped back row. The pilot smirked at the white man who slipped easily into the stolen seat. To them, it was settled. To her, it was only beginning. When the plane landed, she didn't lash out or shout. She moved with measured calm, heels clicking against the jet bridge. In the arrivals lounge, she opened her secure company app and typed one short command: initiate compliance audit on Global Airways. Passenger treatment, crew conduct, and incident logs. Priority. Within minutes, her legal department was mobilized. Global wasn't just an airline. It was one of her company's largest freight partners, bound by contracts worth millions. Contracts she had personally negotiated. Contracts that carried clauses about mutual reputation and conduct. Clauses she was now prepared to wield like a sword. By the next morning, panic rippled through the airline's upper floors. Internal memos confirmed what passengers had already witnessed. The captain told staff she didn't look like a VIP passenger and accused her of upgrading herself. It wasn't hearsay, it was written in reports. A reputational crisis loomed. Legal teams scrambled. Public relations drafted statements. The freight partnership, millions in weekly shipping revenue, was suddenly on the line. That afternoon, the airline CEO called her directly. His voice strained, hiding desperation behind polished courtesy. "I want to personally apologize for your experience," he said. She didn't soften. "I'm not here for apologies. I'm here to make sure this never happens again." Silence on the line. "What would that involve?" he asked reluctantly. Her answer was sharp, unhesitating. An independent audit on crew conduct. Mandatory anti-bias training for all staff. A written acknowledgement of misconduct in my case. And the immediate removal of that pilot from passenger service. The CEO hesitated. "That's extensive." She cut him off. "Not as extensive as the damage you'll face if this goes public while I hold your freight contracts." By the end of the call, the CEO's compliance team was already drafting agreements. Within hours, word of a bias audit leaked into the press, and the airline scrambled to contain the storm. Passengers' recordings began surfacing online. Advocacy groups amplified the story, and internal emails revealed the ugly truth in writing. The captain had claimed she didn't look like a VIP. That single line shattered their defense. The pilot was stripped from passenger service. Staff were forced into emergency training sessions, and shareholders demanded answers. What began as a smirk and a stolen seat had spiraled into a reckoning at the highest levels. Her quiet defiance had not only exposed systemic arrogance, it forced an entire airline to bow. If this story hit you, like, share, comment where you're watching from, and subscribe, because together we make injustice impossible to ignore.